And what I want to talk today is on 1 Corinthians 11 on the headship order that I believe God has given to us, that if we understand it, it's going to be something that we're going to be drawn toward and not look how much we can get away from. And I'm going to read from the New King James Version. There's a lot of depth here on this subject of God's headship order for us, which includes all of us that are in here. There's so much to learn here, and I'm going to give you what I got at this point. And I'm fully expecting in 10 years from now that my message is not going to be four areas for a woman that I want to process here. And again, I've got to wait until we're done again. I'm going to start in verse 5. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered is honest her head. For it is one the same as when her head was short. The one area I want to look at here is symbols. The veiling to me is a symbol. I do not fully understand symbols in the spirit realm, but the symbols are very real. And I would like to have a greater understanding of this subject of symbols. I'm not one to be very keen on design, color, size. I don't go there. And there's a reason I don't go there. And here's one of the reasons. Do we have a heart to walk on the principles that God has given us? Or do we want to try to look how much we can get around it? When I look at this subject, I do not, for men or women, I do not see this as a salvational issue. I'm going to be very clear. I don't see this as someone who does not do things according to this, that is a salvation issue. I don't look at it that way. We can do one or the other. I'm amazed at some people that I see when people are worshiping God, leading a worship team, and I see the men wearing hats and the women not covered. That to me is just like, it amazes me when I see that. I believe a person can do that. But I don't know how many of you were here when I preached the sermon on law, where these principles are given to us for us. I believe one of the calls of Christians is to help bring heaven's culture down to earth. I believe that's my primary goal that I want to do. If I want to be known for anything in my life, this is what I want to be known for. Of bringing heaven's culture down to earth. Yes.
I have a question. I really like what you're saying there, and I've often thought of it. Why do we have these symbols like baptism, covering, and those things, short hair for men? I wondered if God would like to use that as a way to bring a sense of culture to God's people all across the globe. Like wherever you go, if we would follow the things that He established, we would have a sense of, I don't know.
Okay, when I look at symbols, is I am bringing something that is in heaven down to this earth and representing God's culture on earth. Yeah. When I see God's symbols, it's a practical way to explain that, to display that in our society. And God's ways work. And I'm going to just a real simple thing. Why do we put gas in the gas tank, oil in the motor, and coolant in the radiator? Why? Because it works, but there's another reason. Okay? It was designed that way that if you do things this way, this is going to work for you. If you choose not to put gas in your gas tank, you're allowed to. You're allowed to put oil in your gas tank, gas in your motor, if you want to. The little boys are laughing. Why are you laughing? So why are you allowed to put water or coolant in your gas tank? Why are you allowed to do that?
Because you're in the car.
Because you have your free will.
You have free will. You're allowed to. But why don't we?
It doesn't work.
It don't work.
My sons aren't allowed to do that.
That's because you got to pay the bill. But if you are of age and you got to take care of the garage bill, you're not going to want to. And on this subject, this is not rocket science. But this area of God's order isn't going to work if you don't do it according to God's ways. If you think it is, try it. There was one time, a number of years ago, I was up in a church in New York City. I clearly remember this. And the pastor was lamenting the fact of how much divorce remarriage was in the so-called Christian church. Well, no, I'm going to say Christian church. He said there's no difference between in the Christian setting and people that do not profess Christians. I didn't say this, but this is what popped in my mind that time. But every woman who prays or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head. We as a culture struggle understanding the depth of honor. I believe every generation learns something to pass to the next generation. But if I do not honor my dad and mom, what they have to give to me, I'm going to miss. Just because I did not honor. The worst thing I believe every generation can do is dishonor the previous generation. Because you will miss what they had to offer to us. And if you honor, I believe you can look at their life and you can pick out the good and let go of the part that isn't good. But if you don't honor, you won't even get the good. I'm convinced of that. You need to honor the previous generation. But in this honor between a man and his wife, this is my opinion of this verse here. When a woman prays or prophesies with her head uncovered, you're dishonoring the man in your life. I believe that dishonor goes out in the spirit realm. And when a disagreement comes up between husband and wife that should be workable, that dishonor, in my opinion, is poured in between that relationship. And that's when the relationship starts. All that could be avoided. Yes.
On the Corinthians, how Paul was addressing the church, oftentimes he was addressing their weaknesses. So I think oftentimes, God is going to look at us. He looks at us all equal, and some of those how Paul was addressing the Christians, the Corinthians, is through some of their weaknesses. We just need to look at that when we judge other people. You know.
What to me is, this is a principle, and I don't want to bring this principle out here for us to judge the person beside us, but to either look at ourselves and say, I believe Paul was describing a principle of how God's headship order works. And we can either choose to embrace it or we can choose to reject it. I don't believe it makes a difference on my relationship with God as much as it does that area of my life might not work. And when I look at this dishonor, I believe, gets released into a marriage or into between father and son father and daughter relationship, and it's going to be stronger. That's how I see it. You might see it otherwise, but this is in processing this concept with different people. There's a direct correlation goes with groups that choose to let go of the headship feeling and divorce and remarriage, or ones that have that headship feeling with divorce and remarriage. There's a direct correlation between that. And I believe this is the reason that dishonor goes out, and if it's not repented of, it will affect the marriage. Now, I recognize that some marriages are stronger, that they can work through the dishonor. But why, in my opinion, is if I can drive the road and get to where I'm going, why not choose that instead of just heading across the field? And yeah, I might still get there, but why go through all the struggle when it could be avoided by doing things the proper way? Okay, now here's the other area I want to look at. I'm going down to verse 10. For this reason, a woman ought to have a symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. And as you look at that, it says, for this reason, I think we need to back up a little bit. It's the complexity of human life. For a man is not from a woman, but the woman is from the man. Neither was a man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. As you continue on down here, in case a man thinks he's supposed to be so much greater than a woman, Paul brings in here, nevertheless is the man independent of the woman, nor the woman independent of God, of the man in the Lord. For as a woman came from a man, even so a man also came through a woman, and all things are from God. I do not look at this, I look at this as an order that God set in place. That the more we can embrace His order, the better life is going to work. But going back to verse 10, for this reason, a woman ought to have the symbol of authority on her head because of the angels. This is the part that I see as symbols that speak to the spirit realm. This is also a part that I have a lot to learn in. I do not fully understand everything here. But the angels recognize symbols. And your veiling is a symbol of authority. Let me make this practical. This is going to expose myself for a little bit. But when you're driving down the highway, I'm going to say the interstate, and you see a police car ahead of you, what is your first reaction?
On the brakes.
Slow down. Go on the brakes. What else? Look at the speedometer. Why is that? Why do we do that? I agree with you. That's what I do. The first thing I do is go on the brakes without even thinking. That's what I do. But why do we do that? We don't know if what they're doing is just a police car. We're too far away. We don't recognize that there's anyone in it. It could be a stolen police car. We don't know. But why do we do that?
Because I don't have tax for $200. Symbol of authority.
It's a symbol of authority. When we see a symbol of authority, something within us reacts that we line up to the law. There was this young lady I got to know in Lexington City. She started wearing a veil. One day, she stepped outside of her house, and her house was one of them that when you step on the front step, you're on the sidewalk. She stepped outside the house and stepped on the sidewalks. Right as she did that, a man was walking down the street cussing up a storm. And immediately when he saw her, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize. I did not mean to do that to you." She wasn't even knowing he was there. She just stepped out there, and right there it was. Why did he do that? She had a symbol of authority. She recognized it. He recognized that he was out of order to the law, and that symbol shook him and made him step back.
Police car lights.
Excuse me?
Like police car lights.
It affects you because when you're in order, when you're doing things according to the law is not a big deal. But this man, it jolted him to the law of God. So the question I want to give to you, ladies, do you enjoy being that symbol for God? I sense a lot of ladies struggle with this subject. They don't want to represent God's authority as their daily life. I'll give you. I'm going to come across really practical here. I have recognized so many people. I have watched their life, and the progression is so identical. It amazes me. But when I see a lady choosing to wear a baseball cap for her veiling, give her a couple years, it's gone. Why is that? There's a reason for that. It hardly fails. Why is it? Why is that? Anyone ever think about that? Did anyone here ever notice that?
I did.
Is it because the baseball cap is trying to do what you get away with?
Maybe. I'm going to give you a theory. The spirit realm, really, I care about the spirit realm a lot. I believe there's a spirit of darkness out there that recognizes a woman that is under this teaching that we're having right now, for them just to take the hat off, take the veiling off, it really don't fit inside. So they try to do it progressively. One of the steps is wear a hat. You're still covered. It doesn't matter. It's just a hat. You're fine. But it's the voice. Where is the voice coming from? I'm not so opposed to the hat as I am who is saying it. If you follow that voice will take you away from this principle. She's ashamed. She does not want to identify with God's method, and I'm going to make it very blunt, because I believe we have to be. She doesn't want to identify with God's method of operation. And so darkness comes in and compromises one step. But if you can listen to it one time, it will take you throughout life. And it will take you to places that you don't want to go. But it's the voice that I'm concerned about. What voices are we listening to? Are we listening to the Spirit of God within us? Or are we listening to the darkness that's all around us? Let's not be ashamed to identify with God's principles because they work. Again, I'm going to be very clear. I do not believe this is about salvation. Salvation is a free gift from God that I receive by faith. But God gave us principles to walk out life. If we do that, life works. I would much rather drive our roads here than get to across the field with that the rain. In life, we tend to not want to do that. And all I'm bringing out is following God's way. You tend to avoid frustration and pitfalls if we do it God's way. I'm going to be blunt to say, I'm not convinced that you will gain, that God's going to like you better. I believe God loves us no matter what. He loves us who we are, and He's willing to accept us. And we're going to step forward. I have heard people tell that God says, let go of this. Let go. And people go, is this true? You know what? I'm just pushing to this. If you are fighting God's principles, God is more interested in knowing you as a son or daughter than for you to do everything right. But you're the one that's going to lose. Do you see the picture I'm trying to paint? God wants you to, God's main thing in life is to have a relationship with you, and one of His principles just makes you fight Him all the time. You just let go. But we are the ones that are going to lose. We will not be able to represent heaven on earth as well as if we do His principles. There's another part I want to bring out here. And I want to go to verse 15 for this one here. I'm going to start in verse 14. Does not even nature itself teach you that if a man have long hair, it is dishonor to him? What is the definition of long hair? I don't know. But if a woman has long hair, it is a glory to her. For her hair is given to her for a covering. That word covering, I believe, has totally missed. If I understand that word correctly, it means hair. I do not believe the hair is a covering. It's my personal belief. This verse here, verse 15, it's like I had a debate with God and said, I don't get what you're trying to tell me here. The one side of the verse says that the long hair is her glory. Then the second part, it makes it look like, well, then cover it up. I was like, God, this don't make sense in my brain. Why do you give her hair for her glory, which is beautiful? And why do you tell her to cover it up then? And he answered with a question. And the question really went deep for me. He asked in my spirit, he asked this: do you want your glory or do you want my glory? And all of a sudden I recognized it. God asking me a question: do you want your glory of long hair? This is talking to a woman. Or do you want my glory when you cover it up? And I believe it's very, very simple to me that if you want to have God's glory in your life, that's one method to do it. Now, trying to wrap this all up, how do we work this out? We got 4 areas here. One area is a symbol. Other area is to wear it so you don't dishonor your husband. The third area is a symbol. Fourth area is God's glory. So to make this practical, how do we live life? How do we apply this principle that we embrace all four ways? Anyone have an idea? But how does a woman walk this out? Because some people say the hair is a covering. Some people say size really matters. Some people say color really matters. Some people say I can wear my hair down and still put a covering on. All those things we can do different ways. My conclusion of this is, on the area of size, what is the head? Is the covering the head? Or is the covering the hair? As you interact with the people around you, do you want the spirit realm to see it? Or are you trying to wear it in a way that you can hide it? There's a question to ask yourself. Am I trying to fit in? Or do I want to be a policeman, bringing order to the spirit realm by wearing it? How much do you, then the question is, how much do you wear it? My question is to you is, do you want to walk around with authority, representing authority, or do you want to not have that authority? How much do you cover? Do you want to share God's glory? And then to what degree? That's up to you. But do you want to represent God's glory, or do you want to share your glory? So I don't have exactly how you need to do it. But I would encourage you to ask these questions. Do I want to show my glory? Do I want to show God's glory? Do I want to represent, do I want to walk in authority? Or do I want to walk outside of authority? Does the spirit realm see you in your house or only outside? I'll allow you to answer this question. So, this here is designed to have you thinking, why do you do what you do? And choose how you want to live life.
This is a question for you. If a woman is not in submission to her husband, under the right headship of her husband, she wears a head veiling, does it still have the authority effect in the spirit world?
Let me ask this question back to you. If you fill your gas tank with gas grudgingly, does that make a difference?
No.
You're ticked off how high the gas is. It's getting close to $4 a gallon, and it makes you upset. Does that make a difference? Why not?
Still the real deal.
I think you answered your own question.
It does make a difference in your attitude as to how you leave that gas station and interact with people.
Okay?
And it might cause you that accident or something if you're.
You might be ticked off. You might. There's other consequences, I believe, that are associated with your question. But as far as the principle behind it, I don't believe it violates it, because you got to recognize principle is becoming in alignment with God. Now, your attitude should maybe become in alignment, but that's a different subject. Any other questions someone has?
think let's go back to Katie's question about verse 4. If I'm understanding you right, you're taking the first head as the literal head and the second head as Christ, right? You're saying that the man.
For man, if I understand this passage correctly, for man, his head is Christ. For a woman, her head is man. Now, the question arises, because this has been given to me. How about a single girl that does not have a dad? In every scenario, I'll be very honest, I don't have every scenario exactly how it is. If I take it practical from what that verse says, I think it would be well for a woman that does not have a head of a man to come into submission to, that she would find someone. That would be my understanding, but that's an opinion, and I'll allow someone else to have a different explanation. If you do, I'm open for it. Yes.
With that, like, you can just come into church. You're submitting yourself to the men there. Like, as a single woman or a married woman coming to church, you also submit yourself to the leadership of the men at the church. So there's different angles and areas of submission to the men.
Thank you. Did you hear that? Okay, what Hannah said, there's different areas of submission. Like if a woman comes that is single, that does not have any men in her life, she can choose to do that church. And there's different areas you can. But if I understand this order correctly, and let me make this clear. I do not believe a woman in value is less than a man. I want to hear this loud and clear. Some people feel that because they're a woman, they have less voice, they're less of value. I don't believe that's true one bit. In value, you're just as valuable as a man. In order, I believe God made an order for us to work this out, and it's every person fills their position. This life works. So if a man does not fill his position as a leader, and then the woman tries to take over, it's not going to work as good. But if us men put ourselves in the proper position of leading, the woman puts her proper position of filling her role, life is going to work. One of the reasons life is not working as well as it should in America today is because women are saying in order for them to be someone real, they got to fill the position of a man. Then the man gets lazy and steps outside of his position. Life is not going to work. Not because that men are these great things. No. It's because man is not filling his position and the woman is not filling her position. One of the areas in America that's very real is there's not compassion here like we should have. Why? I think it's very simple. Because the women aren't fulfilling their position.
12 o'clock.
No, but if a woman tries to take over the man, she's out of her position. And if a man gets into that, he's not putting his position and it produces chaos. So if a woman fulfills her position and a man fulfills his position, life works. Not because one is better than the other, but because we're coming in alignment to what God says. He's the one that created us. It's as simple as a car. If you want to get really ticked off and put water in your gas tank, you can, but it's not gonna work. And the same way in life. It's not that water is inferior to gas. Drink gas. Look, if it works. No. But each has their different rules that they play. And if every person plays their role according to God's way, life works. Anything else? You want me to stop?
You were talking about verse 14 or 15 where it speaks about the woman's carrying her glory and then also her covering. I think if you read verse 6 helps to explain. Verse 6 helps to explain that. So in verse 6 you can see, you see that it says something about a woman's head. If she be not covered, let her be shorn, or something like that. So I think what I see there is a woman can be unshorn and also be uncovered.
Back in those days, anybody that was a prostitute was shorn. I think what I'm getting at is saying we don't want to do this, we just gotta be shorn. That's how serious it was in it. That's what I would do.
There's different ways to read it. I don't always understand everything. I still believe this subject is so deep that I got so much to learn in this. But I think it is practical enough that if we want to, we can apply it and it works. And we don't have to understand every nuance of it. But if we have a hunger for what God has for us and we embrace it, life is going to work.